Hello, everyone, and welcome to Stocks to Watch. I'm Ashley Berry. So we have a very exciting show for you today. SEGG Media Corp. They're listed on the NASDAQ as SEGG, and they're redefining the global digital entertainment and global landscape through innovation, strategic acquisitions, and platform modernization. So at the heart of this portfolio is Lottery.com and Sports.com, brands undergoing a major transformation with sights set high on global scalability. Backed by next-gen technology, regulatory foresight, and a growing ecosystem, SEGG is positioning itself as a force in the digital lottery and gaming sectors. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Tim Scoffham, CEO of Sports.com Media. Tim is here to unpack how SEGG is really preparing for this next exciting phase of growth. So, Tim, thank you so much for joining us and congratulations on your new role.
Thanks, Ashley. Good to be here.
Yes, great to have you on the show. So let's begin by talking about the expansion plans for Lottery.com. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.
Yeah, so I mean, Lottery.com, as we all know, was previously live in very much in the US market. And as the sort of the turnaround team, as our chairman Matt has been talking about, has got to a place now that we can start to look at how we can utilize lottery, but outside of just the domestic market of the United States. When Lottery.com was last, let's say, up and running and fully functional in the US, it was very much focused on a sort of a courier model. Well, in the period of time where the business hasn't been active in the market, of course, that model has changed, as you know, as markets tend to do over a period of time, given the difference in consumer needs and habits, obviously technological changes, and of course, indeed, regulation as well. So the plan around Lottery.com in terms of expansion strategy is to now, of course, still have a focus on the US, but look at how we can take this brilliant brand and expand it out into other markets, which could certainly complement what we've been doing previously in the United States, but how we can look to take that now into other geographies around the world and provide that to customers in other markets.
Yeah, certainly. And, speaking of the global marketplace, how have you really prepared your product platform and user experience specifically here?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, as just sort of mentioned in terms of the change in the US and in terms of how the kind of the commercial model of Lottery.com has worked in that market, but how that's changed over time. That is very much the same in the international markets on the basis that how users engage with brands, and lottery functions entertainment as a vertical, I suppose. It varies depending on the market, it varies depending on the demographic in a given market. As I mentioned, also it depends on regulation, which is really important because regulation restricts and allows brands to do certain things depending on the market they're in. And then, of course, technology, as you mentioned, what have we done to do that? Well, technology that can underpin those core attributes, given geographics, demographics, and of course, regulatory protocols we have to adhere to, is underpinned by different technologies that can allow for us to do that in a compliant and efficient way to ensure that we provide the best in service to our consumers.
Yeah, and I really like the way you say that because you're talking about the demographics. You're talking about how demographics are different in each market. So you are really laser focused on that user experience and making sure that the customer in each market is really benefiting from the platform. So let's talk about scale. What's really been overhauled or introduced to better support that scalability?
So we haven't necessarily overhauled the platform. Of course, in the US, we're looking to bring the platform more up to date, given the fact that the last time the technology we have to support our US operations has not been active for a couple of years. So it's just kind of reinvigorating that to make sure it's up to date in terms of what users expect, and furthermore, to make sure it meets regulatory requirement. But in terms of enabling us to scale, as I was talking about previously, we have additional technologies which enable us to utilize different features in certain markets which regulatory protocols permit. And that enables us to scale, not just in terms of user numbers, but in terms of geographies as well, which is really important because lottery in the history of lottery.com has been very US centric. So this now allows us to take a brand and really turn it into a kind of a globally recognized brand, but it has to be able to talk to consumers in a way which they can understand. And that ultimately means features. Features allow us to access certain markets. Markets allow us to access certain scale and to start to grow the reach of what lottery.com is.
Terrific. And let's talk about emerging synergies as you scale across regions and business units. I know there is a lot going on with SEGG Media between sports, lottery, and many other things. So let's kind of, dive a little bit deeper into that and explain to our audience what exactly is happening and the synergies between the companies.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Matt McGahn has talked a lot about the sort of the buy and build strategy as we reinvigorate SEGG Media, which can talk to different genres. Should it be in sports, music, or gamification? Should that be lottery? Can help to, which enables us to talk to different markets in terms of our geographical expansion, talking to other markets. And himself and the rest of the executive team are making very strategic decisions as to how they're enabling us to do that. My job here is to ensure that I can deliver that, as you quite rightly articulate, from a synergetic perspective. So what I mean by that is, as you know from a recent announcement, we acquired concerts.com. The group acquired concerts.com, very much targeting around the entertainment vertical within the music genre and ticketing function to provide tickets to consumers. But ultimately, that is a huge demographic in itself in terms of music enthusiasts, which almost touches most people in the world. But how we can now dovetail that against what the acquisitions that we're doing within the sports vertical, underpinned by, sports.com itself by naming convention, and then of course again by lottery.com. So my job is to absolutely identify the synergy between these brands, these verticals, the geographies we're working in, the demographics that sit within those, and how we can basically cross-pollinate users between the different verticals, between the different content genres within the group, and maximize that experience for the consumer and indeed for us as a business. I mean, ultimately, that's what we're here for as well, to make sure that we're driving shareholder value, driving the value of the business, and being seen as, a very significant entertainment technology company.
Yeah, so I'm sitting here smiling because I'm thinking, concerts.com and one of my favorite bands in the whole world. I had to travel far to go see them this past weekend, had the most amazing time. And I thought, well, they're on tour all summer. I could watch them all summer right there from the comfort of my home. So, really it's brilliant. So congratulations on that acquisition. And now from an operations perspective, what would you say are the main logistical or really regulatory hurdles when it comes to scalability in new markets?
Yeah, look, it's a great question, and it's not an easy one to navigate, but it's one we certainly have a strategy that will underpin and allow us to make sure that we can get through it and get through it efficiently. What I mean by that is ensuring that we understand that where we're scaling in certain markets and where we're reaching certain demographics, utilizing the different assets we have within the group, should they talk to music and entertainment or sports or gaming, gamification via lottery, that we can take users on the various journeys throughout the assets that we have as a company and do that sympathetically so they enjoy the experience and we get to benefit as a company in terms of making sure that we retain our users for longer, we continue to deliver experiences to them, but we understand what they're doing from as you say, from a regulatory standpoint. Understanding the data that where we understand our users is the data that they provide and goes through the platform, so we can understand what they're doing, what they like, what they enjoy, and deliver more of that to them.
And I really think, what is so significant and what we keep going back to is you're talking about the user experience and you are so focused on that. And that is so important. And also the shareholder value. So, what's in the pipeline, Tim, for tech and operations?
Yeah, so to answer that question, I think it's probably a little bit related to what I was saying previously in terms of understanding the audience, making sure we're putting more of what they want in front of them. The roadmap for the technology is to ensure that we continue to deliver features which are engaging and meaningful to our users, that we can understand more about them and ensure that we continue to deliver that through the suite of products that we offer as a company. Should it be the brands, should it be the technology, should it be the experiences that we provide to our audience base on a global level in all the geographies that we are in and expanding into as SEGG Media.
Fantastic. And so I just want to ask you, Tim, you're fairly new to this position. What excites you most about sports.com and just SEGG Media in general?
Well, I think it's a lot of what we've touched on already, which is the fact that this is not a one-dimensional business, which makes my job more complicated. But ultimately, it's about the variance in which we can be quite sort of commercially dexterous in how we approach
Mhm.
audiences in different markets with different products that we have, understanding more about our audience base. A lot of what we have talked about over this interview has been about audience, user experience, demographics, geographies, and just making sure that we can continue to provide best in class to our customers, because one of the biggest challenges, as I see in the commercial world today, almost in most industries, is retaining consumers is a very, very difficult, complex, and fairly expensive process. Because as consumers, almost in any industry or vertical that's available to us, should it be from FMCG to entertainment to almost industrial, there are just so many options these days. So I think what excites me the most, and back to your question, is the fact that the buy and build strategy that we're deploying as an initial strategy as a company allows for us to bring great assets, businesses, and people into this group, that allows for us to understand what we can deliver to our audiences on a more of a global level, understanding the difference and variance in profiles of those demographics that we can target, and how we continue to engage with them, how we continue to retain them, and how we continue to grow as us as a brand, but with our audience base, and get recognized for that. And that's really important to me. And I think it's probably one of the most exciting things about SEGG Media.
Yeah, I would say the first thing that comes to my mind after you answered that is truly visionary leadership. So when we're talking about, for those that are just learning about SEG Media Corp, or they're unfamiliar, not sure if they should invest in the stock, here on Stocks to Watch, we like to educate our audience. So I would ask you, Tim, what is sort of your elevator pitch, or what would you say to potential shareholders and why they should invest in this great company?
Well, look, investment is obviously always based on a personal opinion, but when I look at businesses I've been involved with from an operational standpoint, ones I have led or ones I have either invested in myself, you try and look at a number of different aspects that look at the longevity of that business. I don't mean the longevity just in the existence, but ultimately the revenue generation and the value that it delivers as a company, and vis-a-vis back to investors and themselves, and indeed shareholders. And I strongly believe, and hence why I'm here, that this group has laid out the foundation for the formula for that exact objective, which is to drive a long-term value, not just as us as a company, and to our consumers, but as a listed business on the stock market. And that is provided by a blend of technologies, which we have and will continue to develop, and probably look to continue to acquire further technologies as we go down the life cycle of this business and look at new markets and look at new products and verticals. It's a blend of different brands that can talk to different industries, demographics, and geographies. Should that be in music? Should it be in sports? Should it be gamification? And multiple revenue channels that can support the different elements of the group. It would be foolish of me to say that, longevity in business is always by one revenue channel. Seemingly, as the world changes and economies change regularly, it's about mitigating that risk by having multiple verticals within a group that drive lots of value across different types of commercial funnels and channels. And SEGG Media absolutely answers that in terms of looking at how it delivers to audiences on a global level with different products and different brand profiles to speak to that and drive that longevity, as I spoke of.
Listen, well said, Tim Scoffham, CEO of sports.com. So, Tim, words matter in this world, as you know. Two words that you said that you believe. I believe. And I think that that is so important, that you believe in this company, you believe in the mission, and you believe in the user experience and shareholder value. So I certainly, and the audience as well, appreciates your time. SEG Media Corp clearly is no longer just a player in the digital lottery space. It's really an ecosystem, as Tim said. It's like basically building the infrastructure for long-term value creation across digital media, gaming, entertainment. So, Tim, thank you so much for your time today, and we look forward to seeing you succeed in the future.
Thank you, Ashley. Pleasure was mine.